everyone or anyone who is watching, and welcome back to my channel for another video about loss in much too short of a time span. About 2 weeks ago, I want to say, a week and a half, something like that, I posted a video here about losing a friend to suicide and about my experience with it and losing a friend to death in general, and just put it out there so that people would know if they felt the same way, that they're not alone, and for people to know that they're not alone in general. Nobody should feel so alone that they think they need to take their own life, but that is not what this video is about. This video is about a different kind of loss, something that I haven't known as many people in my life to go through as suicide, but it is still something that far too many people have to deal with, far too many women have to deal with, and not really have much advice or anything like that to go off of, if that makes sense. I am fortunate in the sense that I have people who have gone through it, and I know people who will be there for me to walk me through it, through all of it, and all of that kind of stuff. But I'm also unfortunate in the fact that people in my life have gone through this. I'll get into talking about it rather than dancing around the subject. Currently, I am 20 weeks pregnant. And today, at my 20-week ultrasound, it's the ultrasound where you're supposed to find out the gender, and it's supposed to be this happy moment. But at my ultrasound, there was no heartbeat, and the baby had not developed past 16 weeks. So pretty much since my last ultrasound at 16 weeks, sometime between then and the 17-week mark, my child stopped developing and passed. And there's lots of things that I want to say about that, and get off my chest and talk about. And again, just like my last video, I'm just putting this here for anyone who is going through the same thing or something similar, or has been through it or might go through it in the future, to see and to know that you're not alone, and that no matter how you feel, it's okay. So I'll just get into, I guess talking about how I feel, since I already kind of talked about how it happened. There was no heartbeat, and the ultrasound technician, she was just like, unfortunately, we should be hearing a heartbeat. There's no heartbeat, blah, 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 and asked me if I was okay. She still had to figure out some measurements of the baby and positioning and that kind of stuff. So she asked me if I was okay to continue on with the procedure, and I was fine. I felt fine. And I'll get into talking about that, but just initial reaction, I felt fine. When she said it, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, she's gonna keep looking for a heartbeat, okay. And then, she said she was sorry, and I was like, oh, wow, okay. And, then she continued on. I think it probably lasted about another 15 minutes, if even that, maybe, yeah, I don't know, something like that. So, for 15-20 minutes, I was just kind of laying there dealing with the fact that what was inside me was no longer alive. And that is that is the hardest part for me to wrap my thoughts around right now. Okay, so some people may get offended by some of the things I have to say in this video. I just want to put that out there. If you're offended by what I felt and by what I'm going to say, this is just my personal experience and how I personally feel about it. And it's not the traditional feelings. And, part of me feels like that's not okay. But if anybody out there does feel the way that I feel, I want you to know that it is okay. No matter how you feel is okay. And that is something that I try to tell myself through anything that I go through. How I feel is okay. How I react is okay. But with this, it's a lot harder. And I'm going to explain why. Because I've never wanted kids. Ever. My entire life. I'm 19 years old now, and since I was asked at a young age or talked about it at a young age, I always remember saying, I don't want kids. I don't like kids. I don't want kids. And that's okay. That is okay to not want kids. It is perfectly fine to be a woman and to not want kids. But yeah, I just have never wanted kids. I still don't want kids. When I found out I was pregnant, I never wanted to get an abortion. That was never a thought. I support anybody's right to go and get an abortion, but for me personally, I would never do it. I guess pending the situation, but in this situation, it didn't feel right. So I knew I wasn't going to get an abortion, basically. But I still didn't want a kid. I thought about adoption, but the father didn't want to do that. So basically, for lack of a better term, I was stuck having this kid while not wanting to have kids, if that makes sense. And I mean, it's complicated. It's a complicated way to feel because obviously I would have loved my child. Obviously I do love my child, and I would have given them the entire world. But having a kid is never something that I will ever or that I would have ever fought for or seeked out or needed to complete my life, to have a complete family. I'd be fine having me, a happy partner, and some dogs or cats or whatever. I'd be fine with that, having no kids. But not everybody feels that way. Some people, want to have a kid and have a full, beautiful family, whatever. But that has never been what I wanted. And none of that changed when I found out that I was pregnant. It was just kind of something that was happening. So I never got too attached to the idea, if that makes sense. None of it really felt real to me. And I think, once I had the kid and held it in my arms and was like, oh my God, this is, my kid, that would have changed, I'm sure. All of those feelings would have immediately flipped the opposite way. And I was expecting that. But now, of course, I don't have the chance to feel those things. And so I'm just kind of feeling the same way I always felt, which is that it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't really real, if that makes sense. And because I never got super attached to it, when I found out, that the pregnancy was no longer viable, I really was fine. Multiple doctors, came in the room to talk to me about my options, D&C or inducing, all those kinds of things. And every single one asked me, are you all right? How are you doing? And I could honestly answer that I was fine. I really did feel fine. And I really do feel fine for the most part. There's really only one thing about this that is bothering me, but I'll get into talking about that. But yeah, for the most part, I was fine. And that made me feel really bad. I was fine, but I felt really terrible that I felt fine, if that makes sense. I had just lost a child, basically, and there was nothing I could do to fix that. There was nothing I did to cause that, so there was nothing I could do to fix that. And, there were all these reasons why I should just be devastated. But I wasn't, and I'm not. I'm sad, of course, it's a sad thing, but I feel okay. And everybody, my close friends and family keep messaging me or calling me, asking me if I'm okay, if there's anything they can do, and all I can say is I'm fine. And that feels wrong. I really wish that I could fall apart and give them kind of what they're expecting, not what they want, but what they're expecting is for me to be broken apart and, devastated. But I don't feel that way. And this is another point when I want to say, if you feel that way, you're not alone, and it is okay to feel that way. Even though the majority of women who go through this won't feel that way. You're not a bad person for not being broken apart and devastated and feeling like your life is over because of this. Does that make sense? Like, you're entitled to the way that you feel. And you can't change the way that you feel. That's not going to change, no matter what anybody says to me, no matter what, how many people say they're sorry for me, or how many people, say that they're there for me, or tell me that they love me. I'm not ever going to change how I feel about it, because I just can't. I don't feel that way. And that's that. But now I guess I'm just, basically the last thing I want to talk about is what is hard to accept about this, what is hard to deal with about this for me personally. So when I had to really think about the fact that it has been 4 weeks and I didn't know. It's been 4 weeks since, the baby stopped growing, stopped developing, so we can barely, tell what gender it was. And basically, just to say it bluntly, there has been something dead and decaying inside of me for 4 weeks, for an entire month. And I've been walking around like everything is fine, like, and it's just kind of gross. I don't really know how to say that in a better way. It just makes me feel gross. It makes me feel bad, because I know that I didn't do anything wrong. I know that there wasn't anything I did that caused this. Or anything I could have done to prevent it, but it makes me feel like it's my fault, because I'm where this baby was supposed to be safe. I'm supposed to be its home, and I just wasn't. And now it's just dead inside me, and I have to live with that thought for days until this can get handled. And that just really makes me feel disgusting. I know that probably sounds awful, but they're dead, and I don't want to have this weighing on me. I want to get it over with and get it, out, and move on with my life. But I can't, because it's just like I have to wait. And so that's something that's been really hard to deal with. Like, I have to walk around and I have to lay down and go to bed, and I have to eat, and I have to shower, and I have to wake up and brush my teeth and go to work, and just know that there is a dead child inside of me. And that's been the hardest part, and for that I don't have any advice. I don't have any way to deal with that. I'm not really dealing with it. I'm just trying not to think about it, which is really hard when everybody keeps, messaging me and telling me they're so sorry. And I'm not, I'm very grateful that I have people who are reaching out to me, but it's not something that I want to think about anymore. I made the announcement or whatever, and I put it out to the world, and I was expecting, some people to be like, I'm so sorry, whatever. But it's something that I have to deal with alone, and or with the father, because people at my age who are pregnant, like I have multiple people who are pregnant on my friends list. One, it's probably so tragic for them to see, and they probably don't, like, there's no way they could understand because they're not going through it. Their pregnancies are going fine, and they're, having beautiful children and whatever, and I just don't have that. At this point, I'm just kind of rambling, and I didn't really say anything of that great of significance in this video. I know that, but this was really just for me to get all of this off my chest, I guess. And I'm sure I sound like a terrible person, and I'm sure that this helped no one, except for me. I feel better, I guess. I mean, not really, but I got it out there. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, but if anyone out there has gone through the same thing and wants to give advice or something, in the comments, if anybody watches this, or if anybody is going through this and watching it and this helped you in some way, I'm sorry to all of you who can relate to this. But I guess that's pretty much all I want to say. Thanks for watching. I'm sorry that I don't have any words left. But bye.